On the personnel retention area and recruitment area, we did build, I think, Terry, I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but for next year, as a part of that 4% framing that, we anticipated perhaps a 1% increase in the salary.
This is fiscal year 18.
In fiscal year 18. Any kind of a percentage increase would result in us having to figure out, beyond that, we'd have to figure out what we weren't going to do to stay aligned with that 4% growth rate. In fiscal years 19, again, any kind of increase beyond and beyond would result in either cutting current staff and/or programming. Just as a point of information, our employee master contracts expire at the end of this school year, and typically, when you enter into the negotiation process, you have to look at what the settlements are in the area and see what kind of alignment you can achieve with that in relation to your budget. Also, if we do end up in a framework where there are no staff salary increases, recruiting highly qualified staff would become difficult. And those staff, as our experience was with when we entered into fiscal emergency, those staff who can leave well. On the transportation end, obviously, we were projecting moving 5 new buses into the fleet. Again, looking at growing at 150 to 200 students a year. There is going to be a need for additional buses. I think I saw some estimates. If we grow to about, when we get up into the 5,500 range, we're going to need a bus fleet of around 80 buses. So as we grow, obviously, not only are we going to have to look at replacing our older buses that are out at the end of their life, but we're also going to have to look at gaining additional buses to deal with the increased numbers of students we're transporting. Yeah, and then the staff that supports that as well. So adding bus routes or anything like that, we're going to have to make cuts elsewhere in order to stay within that 4% funding. And again, as we look at the age of our bus fleet and the need to transport, probably at the beginning of the fiscal year, 18 school year, which is next school year, we would really seriously, to conserve our bus fleet, have to take a look at going to state minimum busing on transportation, which would be no transportation within 2 miles of a school and no high school transportation. Just because we've got to save your buses, you're getting 200 more kids a year, and we all know, we've been there and done that, and we know what that means. On the athletic end, we do have an extremely high and increasing rate of students participating in athletics, and part of that is because the board we've been able to reduce our pay to participate fees. But again, there's kind of a repeat of history when you start to look at trying to recover costs and expense. That's one area that we would have to consider looking at, would be to significantly increase pay to participate fees. And again, part of the reason for moving and reducing our transportation to students every day would also be having to transport the field trips for our athletics.
As I listen to this and read this, all I see is things that are going to come up with. And I respect the BAC, and I love what they stand for. I think, though, that when I look at what they're asking us to do and how it impacts our kids, I don't see how we can even punch and say that, we need to cut things. We've already been there. We're bringing them back. We're recovering. Our district is growing. Our values of our homes are going up. Why in the world would we entertain this?
Well, I think the reasoning though was because we're spending at 67%. Our revenue is 1% to 2%. So there's a difference. We're spending more money than we're bringing in. And I think the reason
Not yet,
that
though.
no, we are. No, we are right now.
When I look at this, showing where
No. Well, we're eating our nest egg.
Okay.
Basically, we're eating our nest egg. So what happens is we go negative. Where's it at, Terry?
2019.
219. Yeah.
Okay.
6.01.
Pardon?
Are you looking at what line, looking on the budget?
6.01, yes.
You can see when you, fiscal year 18, depending on which one you look at.
And I believe that was the reason they brought this before us, is because they said, based on that rate, we were gonna go negative before then. And at the end of, and help me out on this, Terry, on their forecast that you and I talked about, we went over, the entire district goes negative in 21 or 22?
It looks like 22.
22,
22.
and I believe that was
That's
the
assuming no
reason.
new dollars,
Part of the
correct?
increments.
That's assuming no new dollars.
What if we get new dollars?
I mean, no
Correct.
other levy, no
Yeah,
renewals, nothing.
well, yeah, right, yeah,
Okay.
there's no new levies, no,
Negative expenditures.
Okay.
and that's what they were saying, is that we have to figure out some way of pushing that out. And that's why they suggested the 4%.
Okay.
And
So
I mean,
maybe
they're not
that's-
saying that they want to take things away from kids, I don't believe that.
Agreed.
I don't think that's the case. I think they're looking at it basically from a numbers standpoint and saying, you're spending X and you're taking in Y, and X is bigger than Y, and you're gonna eventually run out, you know, the old saying, you're gonna
Money.
eventually run out of money, and
It
and
is.
that's what they're saying.
It is unfortunately Ohio school finance.
Oh, no, no.
The
Oh, yeah,
cycle
yeah.
of being a growing district, being capped last year, were we capped last year with our growth carry?
Well, yes, we were,
And,
400 some thousand.
You know, so
Yeah.
we're getting new kids every year, we're not even getting the $1,800 that we're getting per kid from the state, that we lost, over $400,000 last year. It's, they're the funding piece in a growing district that also needs more space. I mean, the reality is, we're trying to thread a needle here that is,
Virginia, could you pull up slide 3? That, so 17 and 18, the $1.4 million budget growth reduction, again, it's a growth reduction.
Exactly.
We're still looking to spend 4% more dollars we did last year, but the difference being from what we projected to the 4% is 1.4.
Correct.
As I'm looking at this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, our discussions, we talked about 5 buses at about 80,000 apiece, it's $400,000. 10 new teachers a year based on 200 new students a year would be 650,000, which says around 65,000.
Correct.
So that's about $1 million. But the other 400,000 is staff, miscellaneous, digital.
well, that's no staff.
Yeah, yeah, oh, that's no staff, okay, so that's that 400,000. So in reality, again, I try to simplify it. The 400,000 here is, in industry, we would call it incidentals. Am I correct on that?
Some, yeah, I mean, some will be like, you're talking about supplies, materials, those types of things, exactly. Now, one thing that is built into that, which is a major part of it, is our insurance, our medical insurance and so on. That's gonna be part of the increase also. Now, you're gonna have to, what I'm saying is, you've got that, that's hard to cut, because you can't cut it, of course. Because, we're locked in where we're locked in. So you have to cut other things, because that's part of the expenditures that are still there, if that makes sense.
And
You have
doesn't
certain things that are gonna still be there, whether you like it or not.
our insurance depends a lot on how it's been used, right? Whether it
Correct,
goes
look at
up
claims
or down.
ratios and so on.
Yeah.
And we've been doing very well there. I'm projecting it's gonna go up at some point, because I'm not gonna see the 0 and the 1% and the negative 1% continue, right? I'd probably be a fool to think that's gonna go on forever, to be quite honest. So it's gonna go up at some point. It is projected to go up in this forecast. Both the 4% one and also the October submission.
And then the other wild card here is that we are gonna be going into negotiations with our employee unions. And I need to be very careful what I say here, because I don't wanna be negotiating in public. That would be an unfair labor practice, and that's not my intent. But, is it realistic to think that we're gonna negotiate contracts with our unions that are only gonna result in a 1% increase of the base? Is it, I'm just posing that as a rhetorical question. If you look at settlements in the area, you can draw your own conclusion.
Well, but back to the BAC. I believe that this exercise here was to a reality check for all of us to look at this, say, we're spending more dollars than we're taking in. And I agree 100% with what you said earlier, Greg, about, the buses and the teachers and so forth. But I think there's gotta be a happy medium in here that we can look at and still function and do it well. I know in the past, historically speaking, you know, if you've got the money, you buy it, but I think that as we go into the future, we know that, you know, we've got to tighten our belts.
So certainly there is a
I don't know
mitigating
what that
mitigating
is.
circumstance here with a possible bond issue on the horizon, and obviously if square footage is added, that's gonna result in people and operation expense being added. And that even, you know, calls a couple of valid issues that go beyond what we're talking about here, which, you know, it makes things look kind of cloudy in the future as far as challenges go.
Terry, when do we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All I was gonna say, I just wanted to point out something I think we all need to remember, when you look at these 5-year forecasts, you know, they're not in stone. Every time I put one together, it's gonna look different than the other one. And you hit it on the head, Randy, a little bit ago, when you said, well, yeah, they're just looking at it, you know, from a standpoint, it's almost like boilerplate, 4%, 4%, 4%.
Right.
Fiscally, I think the 4% is a wonderful thing. It adds a ton of money to the fund balance when you look at the difference between year 5 and both of those different degrees. From a pure dollar standpoint, fantastic. But you gotta balance it with that growth, and I think, and you can't really, I mean, yeah, you can project it out and where you wanna look to give you a roadmap of where you wanna go. But I think you get to the point where it's like, all right, you almost have to go year by year, because we're looking out in la-la land, to be honest, when we're talking about budgets and different things,
Right.
when we get on to years 3, 4, and 5, what you're aiming for. Do I think there is a happy medium between the two? I also think that somewhere between the two where you are right now, there's gotta be a happy medium. But it's almost like you gotta do it almost a year by year basis, because you gotta balance against that growth each year. And it's like, all right, if we don't need it, we don't do it. Because more than anybody else in this district, I like to go around and top what we spend per pupil. All the time I give to others, because we're still in the bottom third of the state, and that's how us treasurers walk around and toot our own horn. Well, we only spend this much per kid, and our kids are doing this great, and that's that whole bang for the buck thing. But I think each year you
But
gotta.
what it also
take a
says
look
is
at
it also says you can get a good education for lower dollars.
Absolutely.
Now, yeah, that has a lot to do with the staff that you have, it has a lot to do with the facilities and the administration team. That's exactly what you strive to do, is put together a good team, spend the least amount of dollars to get the most amount of bang for your buck.
Yep.
When do we need to make a decision on this, Terry?
As far as this goes,
Yep,
anytime you
on
want.
a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I wouldn't go out further than a year and just, and see what you can look at for each year, because like I said, you're getting into guessing. You know, they're educated guesses, don't get me wrong, based on trends and analysis and so on, but if you go way out there in year 5, or even like Greg was saying, year 6 through 10, you can't just put a boilerplate 4% at all those years, because you don't really know what's gonna happen. You can strive for that, or however you wanna look at it, but you don't know what's gonna happen based on growth. And our history of our growth says, well, we're gonna keep doing this right now. And that's why I don't wanna look out too far. I mean, you wanna look out to see what it looks like, but then you gotta come back in a little bit, I think, when you're thinking, all right, here's what we need to do right now.
Yeah, Randy, we anticipate bringing you a staffing plan next month, a December board meeting, for your review. And then we're gonna seek approval of that in January. That's for next year.
Mhm.
Obviously,
So we need to make a decision on this right away.
well, I mean,
Because it's gonna
obviously, if you're
affect your
telling,
staffing.
if the board is telling us no staff, then that
I don't know what the board is saying, I'm not saying the board's saying anything at this point,
but I can assure you that the last several years that we have come before you and made staffing recommendations, there's nothing there that's fluff or nice to have. We haven't brought to you nice to have things. We've brought to you needs. Now, you know, I know from your perspective and other board members' perspectives, you know, we may not be completely in alignment with that statement
well,
that I just
I look
made.
at it from a business
But-
standpoint,
but,
and I know you only have, the pool is only so big, but I understand what you're saying. The pool of money is only so big, and you can only cut it so many different
Mhm.
ways and put the money out there.
Sure.
None of us want to go back to where we were in fiscal emergency.
Right.
Right.
And if we run out of money, that's where we are. And I'll share this conversation, I won't say the individual. The individual said to me, this was a part of the teaching staff, well, you know, we need to make more money. I said, I agree 100%. However, my job is to make sure you have a job next year, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after. And I can't, as I look at this, the Business Advisory Council, the reason that we asked them to look at this is they are totally removed from education. They look at it from a business standpoint, and what we have to do, and when I say 5, it's really the 7 of us that have to look at these numbers and go, this is what we can afford to pay, and this is what we can't. And I don't want to cut staff, but then again, I don't want to go broke either. and I don't know where that, I don't know where that is in between.
I can send out for an order of Solomon, but
Yeah.
that hasn't shown up yet, you know, as far as.
I'm
having-
open for a suggestion.
Well, I think maybe 4%. There could be like, you could go 5% maybe, or, I mean, you gotta look at all the numbers again and discuss. You just can't say, you know,
Right.
this is how it's gonna be.
That's what I'm saying, you gotta scrutinize it on a yearly basis, you know, and you can have your roadmap and your projections for the future, but, you know, the details, I think, are on a year-by-year basis, that you really need to scrutinize.
We were bringing it to the December 13th meeting, and of course, along with that, we do bring a 5-year forecast that reflects that staffing in it, so you will have that financial information to compare with what the BAC has and with our current 5-year.
If it's okay, I'm gonna ask a couple questions. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Rusty, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. Question number one, did the BAC have any conversations? I got the what, have they had any conversations about the how? Like how do we do what you're recommending that we do? I know that there were some conversations on, hey, here's what we think you need to do and what you should be considering. Were there some conversations where they looked at the operations and came up with some suggestions as to the how?
The BAC has looked at a number of options, and just as points of discussion. We took a look at busing and the possibility of outsourcing busing to see if that made any sense at all. The feedback that we are getting right now is no, it doesn't. Okay?
Okay.
But it's something that we have to look at. We had Peterman come in, make a presentation to the BAC. They claimed a certain dollar savings. That doesn't treat any of the soft issues at all. And it's the soft issues that are going to kill it. Greg is working with a consultant right now to look at all of the possibilities of saving energy for the entire school district. That's a critical issue of taking a look. Okay? Those are two things that stand out in terms of the how we do it. What prompted the discussion with the BAC to begin with was when we started looking not at the dollar amount, but the tax implications and the millage that would be required to support the growth rates. Okay, and the millage struck us as being absolutely out of this world. I mean, not of this world at all, in terms of our ability to go out and sell something to the taxpayers. All right? I mean, we can talk about money all day long, but if the taxpayers don't vote the money that we need to operate, okay, what do we do? I mean, we've been there.
Yep.
All right? So, it's not an adversarial relationship between the BAC and the board. And we don't perceive it that way, we don't discuss it that way. We have some very spirited discussions in the BAC, as Greg will attest.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but the idea behind the whole thing is that somehow or another, we all need to get on the same page. Right? And we have to decide what is feasible, because if you all decide that you want to float a bond issue, you're gonna need the help of the BAC to make it. Okay? And we'd like to work and continue to work with you. So I like the dialogue that's going on.
No, I'm very much appreciative of everyone's efforts, and I'd rather have these conversations now than in fiscal year 19, 20, and 21, when you're 6 months away from the fiscal cliff and you hit the iceberg and the water's coming in the boat and you didn't know about it for 2 years. So
Well,
these conversations are good to have now,
Sure.
and at some point in time, you go, okay, I'm like Randy, okay, we all went out, the 5 of us, last November and campaigned for a levy renewal, and the things that we told people we were gonna do in our community if they entrusted that money to us was that we were gonna lower class size, we were going to attract and maintain high-quality teachers, we were going to make sure we could transport kids to and from school safely, and we were going to update our curriculum because we have books from the, back when the first George Bush was president. And so some of this dialogue that we're having now kind of flies in the face of that a little bit, so there's some tough decisions to be made all around, because some of the things the 5 of us or 7 of us or all of us went out and sold to our community. This plan makes keeping those promises a little bit more difficult, not only in the short term, but maybe in the long term. And so I'd rather be having some of these conversations, and I'd rather know now than later.
Yeah.
That's why I get a stomach ache every time I go.
And we appreciate everything that you
Oh, we
guys
do.
every
Work hard.
um,
Give up your time.
And that's why we want to entertain that with a lot, and I know Greg and his conversations when we talked about the new situation we have in front of us of running out of space in that, and is being able to tie everybody in, including the BAC, to look at the numbers and look at everybody, and that's, we're very serious about doing that. The question before us at this time, and you brought it to our attention, and I appreciate it, we just have to figure out what that happy balance is that, because at the end of the day, if we spend more than we take in, we're still going in the hole. If we only take in 1%, we spend 2%, we're still going in the hole. We're just doing it on a longer, slower slope. If we spend 10 to 20% every year, we're gonna get there overnight. So we ask ourselves, how do we get, what is that balance? And I wish I knew off the top of my head, but I don't. Tony and I can remember, the things that people asked us when we were out talking to people, and those were the things. And and we have always said, if we need a teacher, then go get them. We'll figure out something. But now we're to that point of figuring out something, and that means that somebody's not going to get what they want. And we just have to figure out, and in my opinion, this is just me personally, from a board perspective, I think instead of picking and choosing what that is, I think that's up to you as a superintendent and the treasurer to figure out what you're going to spend it on, but the board says, here's the dollars or the percentage that we can live with, and then set it out. That's just my opinion. I don't know, Mike, what's your thought?
Like I said before, we all know what we went through before, and we just sitting here talking, are we gonna go to the 4%, or are we gonna cut it on our own? No, we can't go through that again.
We gotta do something.
I'm sorry?
We have to do something.
But we have to do something, but we have to make sure that, things in Little Miami are pretty good right now.
Yes,
And we've got to keep that going.
exactly.
If we have to cut down to 5, 5.5, 6, I don't know. The BAC can give us those numbers. Terry can give us those numbers. Maybe something like that would work. But just to come in and say, hey, we're gonna cut down to 4%, we cannot do that. Because we're gonna lose quality teachers, and like the one said that, I'm tired of being a teacher, being a teacher's teaching school to where we teach them and they go somewhere else. Because that's what we're doing, along with administrators. Lost a lot of good people because we can't afford them. So we don't need to.
But we can't keep taxing our
No, we
taxpayers
can't.
to the point where they can't afford it either.
What's your thought?
My thought, I think the 4% might be doable for 1 year, but I think there's no way we could do it the way they said. My point is, there's gotta be a different number. I think we could live within a different number less than what we're doing now, but we could cut down somewhere.
One will be up going to 5.5.
Okay.
I don't know what the numbers are.
I know this is your favorite.
But yeah, I was ready to move on half hour ago. But again, we are responsible to the community to provide the best education for their children at the best cost.
And we're gonna get them
I think we do
children.
that amazingly right now. We do that, okay? So if we continue to do that, and the community sees that, and we get to a point where more money is needed to, I mean, we're not trying to make these exorbitant changes where our kids are gonna get this digital and everything's gonna, we're taking small steps, and other people around us are taking bigger steps, so I don't want our kids to fall behind. That's where I see, I love the money piece, but I think we still have to look at how that impacts our kids. So 4% to me seems drastic, but again, we need some more discussion. Seeing the growth in the district, from my perspective, seeing the kids get off the buses every morning, I can't imagine that we can put many more kids on these buses. It's unsafe. So there's a lot we have to balance, and I think we need to go into depth and have more discussion. We can't just say, well, we like 4%, we don't like it. I want to know exactly what that 4% is taken away, because it is taken away, in my opinion.
Mr. Deems?
Well, I'm good. I think that, I appreciate the input of the BAC and them giving us, hey, here's something to keep in mind. I think what we do is we do this day by day and month by month, and as we, meaning Greg and Terry and the district leadership, as they make decisions day by day, we all are now well aware of what's out there 5 or 6 years from now, and, we just examine each step of the way and make sure we're making the right step. And I think the people of our community have entrusted us with resources, and I think that we're being good stewards of those resources, and we just need to keep continuing to do that moving forward, knowing that what's out there in front of us, and we need to make sure that as we move step by step, and that we have some of those hard discussions along the way to make sure that we're staying on track. So
Can I add something? I'm a new member to the BAC, so I've only been to one meeting, and I'm just getting my feet wet. But I'm also new to the Little Miami community. So I've only been here a year, and I live down in Laurel Glen, and we all have a group that goes out once a month, all the ladies go together and have dinner and everything. So I was bringing up, I've been coming to the board meetings and trying to, put out information. And I mentioned that, we know how excited we were that we passed the levy, but, we're gonna have to keep building on that from, we're behind, right? And I was excited because I'm a firm believer in a great education. And my neighbors looked at me like I had 3 heads. I mean, they were like, they're gonna ask for more money. Well, we can't afford it. The farmers can't afford it here. Well, I mean, I was just like, whoa. So that's just one of the things I just wanna, again, I'm all for the great education. I know where it can get kids. But I think we have a lot of work to do in our community, is what I'm saying, to get others to be more receptive to that idea. So I feel bad. I think we're in a very bad dilemma here, because I think we need to provide, like Nancy says, the best education. But I also think we have to weigh that against what our community is going to be willing to pay.
I appreciate that, and I want to be able to say, when there's a time that comes, if we have to go out and ask for additional dollars, I at least want to be able to go look people in the eye and say, we turned over every possible rock, and we took what you gave us, and we stretched it as long as we can stretch it, and we can't stretch it anymore. And people like Rusty and Mark and the BAC, they've helped us along the way turn over every rock and look at it, and we've questioned ourselves and we've questioned each other, and we've done all we can do with what we have, and And at least they don't say, well, you just sat up there at the 70, but in the last 5 years just spent like you wanted to spend, and now you're coming back with your handout again. I don't want that to be, somebody might say that to me, but I know good and well that that's not the truth.
That's right.
As we've been going through, bringing the BAC back and having some of these discussions, and at the very least, I feel very comfortable, whether that's 3 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever that is, to say along the way, we've looked at where we've looked at busing, we've looked at energy, we've turned over every rock, and this is kind of where we are, and we will need to partner with everyone if we're gonna continue on the trajectory that we're on right now. And I was gonna have one thing I mentioned to Greg, if we want some of the teachers who did the pilot last year to speak with us, next week or the week after, we have Greg has a meeting with the staff, and then we have a work session after, if they could, I mean, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but they could maybe stay after the staff meeting
That's a
and,
good idea.
Our focus was gonna be the master planning at those work sessions.
or we could come, and just to give us a little bit of feedback. I just thought that might be an opportunity where they might already be there.
I don't mind at all, I can offer them that as easily as the January board meeting or the.
So it's up to Greg and Randy. I just,
Well, Greg, maybe between now and the December meeting, I know we've got some other things scheduled. If we could do maybe 1 or 2 work sessions between now and then, and talk about this percentage and the impact and the things. I don't know each.
What about after the first of the year?
He's gonna ask for a staffing plan in December.
We've already got two.
Let's do it in December.
Well, then you would have to hold off on your staffing.
The staffing plans for staffing is what we need here, Randy. It's.
I mean, I understand, I understand.
Yeah, you can tell me we're going on a 4% budget, I'm still gonna tell you what we need.
Well, that's right, but what I'm
You know,
saying is,
now,
instead of
you know.
bringing that before us and us having to say no to it, because we haven't come up with a
Well, I want you to know
percentage.
what you're saying no to. I want you to understand what you're saying no to. If the board decides it's gonna go on a 4% growth model, I want you to understand what you're saying no to.
Well, I don't, I don't know what we're saying we're going to do, Greg, but what I'm saying is, I would hate for us to be put in a position to have to approve more staff and then come back and say the budget, well, we've already spent, you know what I mean? It's kind of putting the cart before the horse. So we would either have to do the sessions before then, or if you could
If
put
I
the,
could just say, the pool of candidates is very different the longer you wait to hire.
I understand.
And
I
so
understand.
we do want the best for our students in whatever, whether that's 1 teacher or 3 teachers
I like
or
that.
whatever. But the pool does differ as you continue. Tony, you and I had that conversation 2 years ago, and last year you allowed us to hire early, and it did make a difference. I just want you to keep that in
Well,
mind. I
but I'm gonna
understand
play
the
devil's advocate
process.
here. It doesn't do any good to hire the best and brightest if I have to lay them off in 2 years.
That's silly.
Yeah, that's my point. And I agree with what you're saying. That's why I'm saying, if we could do the work sessions between now and then, we could get a better,
But I think we've already said if the teachers are needed, they're needed. So
Yes.
if it's staff and it's teachers, what do
but we
need?
don't have I mean, if we're saying we're gonna hire, let's just use an example, 5 teachers, but we don't get the growth that we're talking about.
Or we still have.
I don't wanna hire
kids that
five
are
teachers.
in.
Understand, the proposal for next year is not a growth proposal.
Right,
It's
but one-
based off of what we have in the way of the increasing enrollment that has arrived here since the first day of school.
Then I
And
think
we
we
have
need to do
bigger
the
classes of
percentages
kids
then
moving
before we
up.
do the staff. I really do. I really think we do need to figure out the budget before we figure out the staff.
when's the work? There's a work
December
session.
5th is the
December 5th.
is the next.
One on the 5th and one on the 14th.
One on the 14th, correct.
Is it inappropriate for us to have that conversation on the 5th and then move forward one way or the other? Because you were gonna bring the staffing plan on the 13th. I know we were gonna talk about facilities,
So you're gonna have
but if we do a work session, is there any reason why we can't have I mean, we beat this horse to death pretty good tonight,
Yeah, I would like to just walk away from it and come back.
on the,
with a
is there any
fresh mind.
reason why we can't have a 30-minute conversation on the 5th and?
We started hiring last year in February, and that
Right.
was beautiful. So we don't start posting, that February timeframe is certainly nice. So if December 5th isn't the right day, and we came back for facilities, as long as we can have it around that time, it would be beneficial to us. Yes or no's, but just to know.
So you're saying the January meeting is
I mean,
okay?
I'm
if-
saying if we can begin the hiring in February, that's.
So if we can bring in whatever that plan is at the January board meeting,
That would
we
be
can
nice.
schedule some work sessions
Okay.
prior to making that presentation, if that's what the board wants.
I mean, are we talking about, we're not talking about we're talking more of the five of us, a directive to Greg and Terry.
Exactly.
Saying, hey, we'd like you to stay within these parameters.
Yeah.
We don't have to do a resolution, we don't have to, all we're doing is just, it's the five of us with one voice
Exactly right.
to district administration saying, we'd like you to be within these parameters as we grow, try to stay with, as best we can within these parameters.
And Terry
That's what we're
could
talking
give
about?
Terry could give us what it looks like with a 4.5, a 5, a 5.5.
Could you do that here?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that, yeah.
Not 6, we're doing 6 to 7.
Just depends, on what- yeah. You
And
can,
the-
you can go, we
we're
can give you
at
dollar
7
amounts, and
current.
then you can break up the pie whatever you want.
Reason for that, so why aren't we looking for?
Aren't we at
the
6%,
cut and not the
right?
staff?
That's an
The staff
average.
is a
It
given.
goes-
Average.
We have kids, we need
Yeah,
staff.
that's an average
Well,
one,
I'm
the
confused with that.
forecast.
Well, actually, there's, when they talk about staff, this is the 650, the
What about
1.4 we were talking about,
Then it
is
goes down.
400 is
So
incentive.
this is a given.
We're at
I don't see how we
Yeah.
can get away
No,
from
I agree.
hiring
Then it
the
goes down
staff.
every year,
So
7,
why,
5, 4, and 5.
why
Okay,
are we,
7.3 next year.
the staff is what we need.
But it drops every year
If we need
after
to cut, we have to cut from other
Well, no,
places.
Greg is saying these are not based on the new kids coming in, these are staff that we need
Based on
now.
the current.
Because
based on-
the
Or
things
based
that are
on
moving
current.
up, right.
That reduction
Right.
says, we were projecting up to 10 new staff, right, Terry, in the 5-year,
Ten
next
staff.
current
Yeah, we
5-year?
pulled out the 10 that
We were
were-
projecting 10 new teaching staff. So
For next year.
that 1.4 million reduction says no staff.
650,000
No
says no.
staff.
Yeah, 650,000 of that 1.4 says no
Right.
staff. If we did, that's at 4%, but if we did 5%, I'm throwing,
Yeah.
don't quote me on this, I'm just, this is a conversation. If we said 5%, that might pick up the
Change.
staff and a couple of buses, you know, that's what we have to
That's
decide.
what we want to look
But
at.
you
That's what
also,
we have to
you
decide.
also
For those
have to give
different
some
percentages
consideration
there.
to what are you going to do in negotiations, and there could be a
Whatever,
possible
we have a work
increase
session about
there
this.
that is not currently
Right.
figured in that.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm not going to put that in there now until after
Not on the first, we
negotiation.
have one on the 5th and on the 14th.
So, I mean, whatever that number is.
Probably. I
But
don't know
the
yet.
point being is that it gives us the opportunity to get our hands around the budget, and then we can get our hands around the staff versus the other way around.
Do whatever you want.
I think that would be the logical next move.
So we're gonna have a work session in between,
No.
right after the first of the year about this, right?
Oh, we decided to not do it on the 5th?
We are not,
No.
yeah,
We'll bring a staffing plan to the January board meeting.
yeah,
Yes.
bring, and in January, let's get this straight and let's get it out now and get a,
We have at least 3 meetings in January.
You have an organizational meeting on January the 10th.
that's, yep,
Okay, January.
Also a tax budget that day.
yep, also
Yeah,
tax.
that's fine.
Can we
Yeah.
just do it that, can we just do it that
Just do
day?
it the same day.
Can we do all the same
Can we
day?
just
Yes,
do all
we
this?
usually do. We usually do the tax.
No, I mean,
budget.
can we do all of this on the same day?
The tax budget
And then have
We
the
can do a
conversation?
special
We
meeting
can do
on
the
that
tax
day.
budget, we can do the organization.
and this conversation.
You could then have a special meeting
Yeah.
after your organizational
Right,
meeting.
yes,
That's
the
your work
organization,
session.
right, but do it on the same day.
Yeah.
Let's-
But we
just
still
on
need
the
our
10th.
regular board meeting later.
Right.
You said 10th or the 12th?
10th.
Yeah.
Say that, 10th.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have 3 meetings on the 10th?
On the 10th,
Yeah, but the tax hearing takes like 10 minutes.
and so does the
Right.
organization.
Yeah, they're not very long.
Yeah, the tax, the organization one is special, right?
Yes.
Got it. Everybody put that down?
Yeah, but-
Nothing else works.
What time?
Well, the organizational meeting is
Yes,
currently
7.
scheduled at 7 o'clock.
And we usually do the tax hearing, what, about 15 minutes
Yeah,
before
about
that?
6:45 we'll get tax budget here.
Done.
And
Why don't we
then-
start at 6, guys? If this is gonna be entailed, let's do 6 o'clock. Can we do that?
Yes,
For,
yes, we can.
The let's do the tax meeting at 6, and then go from there.
Is that okay, Terry?
Yeah, that's fine.
Everybody good on that, on the calendars?
Sure.
Where is it?
January 10th.
At the intermediate.
That'll be held at the intermediate school in the conference room.
Intermediate. Okay, can we
6
move on
o'clock.
now?
Yes, we can.
Sure, Bobby.
She wants to get the date.
Everything else works in this whole budget thing, the one thing that has to work is staffing. Like, staffing, we, with so many, like, that's the most important front, for kids' education is the teachers.
We agree.
No, I agree.
We agree
Even
with
if
that.
everything else fails, staffing
Can't
has to
teach
work.
kids without teachers.
That's it.
And then I had,
We are so.
can I go on?
Go ahead. Greg's moving on to the next thing. Go ahead, Greg.
I had the opportunity to, this was not on my bucket list, but I did end up standing and talking in front of about 300 people at the State House last week. I'm happy to report that I didn't have to post bail, and I did make it out of Columbus in one piece. We had about 300 folks show up to express our concerns about over-assessment of our students and the concern about end-of-course high school assessments and basically more local control over a lot of the edicts and mandates that are coming out of Columbus. There were 5 superintendents that spoke. I was privileged to be able to be one of them, and it was, I thought, a very positive thing, although later at the state board meeting, it wasn't so positive when people talked to the state board president. We're just pleased that we were able to go advocate on behalf of our kids.
And what did
our
Peggy
families.
Lerner say, Greg?
Peggy, what did she say?
What?
Peggy.
Did you hear what she said, Peggy Lerner?
Oh, a number of them have commented or remarked that we just.
She just said that we didn't need a confrontation on the steps of the State House, that they are listening. That's what she said. So we'll see.
Board president of the state board had some other thoughts
Well, I'm
that
sure.
weren't so positive, so.
Very nice.
I think if they were listening, it would have never gotten to that point in the first place. So that's probably would be.
Okay, all right.
That's what she said.
You wonder who they're working for.
Moving right along.
The citizens or the special interest. End of my political commentary. Thank you. That's all I have.
Ms. Coates,
No one signed up.
community comments on agenda items? Okay, at this time, we'll entertain treasurer's reports and recommendations.
Yes, for the board's approval, under item A for the monthly financial reports, which is for the month of October, bank reconciliation, individual listing of all the individual funds of the district, and also budgetary reports.
I move.
Ms.
I'll
Price?
second.
Who's
Mike.
second? Mike? Mr. Cummings? Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Mr. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Next, under item B, I ask for the approval of the 2 contracts as listed, and we'll go over them.
I'll move.
Mr. Cummings?
I will second.
Mr. Nemish? Terry, you want to explain this to?
Yeah, there's 2 different contracts listed there. One is with Applied Behavioral Services. It's for special education classroom placement, particular student. And then the second one also is with the Mason Community Center, and it's actually for our diving team for the school year.
Okay.
Hey Terry, I had a question on that.
Yes.
Did the diving team used to dive somewhere else and then at the Y in Lebanon?
Well, I know. How long have we had since, we haven't had a diving team in a
haven't
while.
had a diving team in the last 2
Yeah,
years.
it's been a while.
And
Gotcha.
we now have 13 divers.
Gotcha.
Don't we have, didn't the swim team go to the Y?
They go to the Y.
They usually come.
They swim at Countryside.
Yeah.
But they don't have a dive facility there, so we need a
Okay.
dive
Not-
facility.
oh,
somewhere.
Got it.
They actually, according to Jim, they do have dive facilities, however, it costs more
Yeah.
than what Alyssa had found at Mason.
Amazing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's cheaper and they allow you to only rent, I think it's 3 boards and lanes versus theirs 4. So it is cheaper.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Fiscally responsible.
All right.
Try.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Mr. Means?
Yes.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
John?
I would like to ask the board's approval for all items under A, personnel, including the addendum.
I'll move.
Ms. Grice?
I'll second.
Mr. May? Roll call, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd just like to,
Make a comment.
I'd like to make one comment to make sure it's incorporated into the minutes. Among the personnel items, Connie Combs, a longtime custodian in the school district, is retiring December the 1st after 20 years of service to the district. She's been a great, faithful Little Miami employee, Little Miami graduate, class of 65, a wonderful, wonderful person, and we will greatly miss her service.
Yes, we would, sure.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Mr. Cremins?
Yes.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
I ask the board's approval for item B. It's an update of the Business Advisory Council Charter along with its membership.
I'll move.
Mr. Nemish?
I'll second.
Mr. Nay? It's great. Is there any changes, or is it just a renewal of?
There is an update on the membership list. We do have new
I've never seen
members.
the original. Just on the membership
Just on the
list?
members.
Yeah, just on the
Okay.
members.
It's just the members.
Do I have to abstain?
She's a member.
No. you
I
don't.
wouldn't think so.
If you want to.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Cremins?
Yes.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
This will be updated annually in the month of May from now on.
Okay.
There'll be an annual update on it. And then I would ask the board's approval for item C, a memorandum of understanding between OPSI regarding an educational aid position.
I'll move.
Mr. Rice?
Second.
Mr. Cremins? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nemish?
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grice?
Yes.
Mr. Cremins?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, under new business, what you've all been waiting for, the Warren County Career Center report by Ms. Grice.
Okay, Warren County Career Center report. Our high school instructors, Delon Collins and Dan Tova, were recognized by the board for helping landscape our facility and vehicle and equipment maintenance at Warren County. We're using their students to do some of the hands-on work so that they learn and also help us out. We also approved memorandum of understanding with Hamilton County Urban Search and Rescue Task Force for release of equipment to be used by our students. There are other things. We started a SAD group, which is Students Against Destructive Decisions. It used to be Students Against Drug Diving, but they've changed that and included other things. There are other memorandum of understandings there, and we also approved our Warren County Career Center, our King's Business Academy to go to New York City and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's all travel expenses are paid by the students. We accepted numerous donations. We have upcoming events. Some of these have already passed, but we have a sophomore showcase, November 28th to the 30th, and sophomore open house, December 1st. This is to let the sophomores come in and tour our facility and see what we offer. And more, I would like to see all sophomores come, but some choose not to. Superintendent also reported on the Ohio Association of Career and Technical Superintendents Breakfast at OSBA and the OACTS Blueprint for the Future and Plans for Community Day 2017.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Bob.
That's when they sell the flowers. Community Day.
Did an 8th grade trip, I think, today.
Very good.
And I know my daughter would be mortified if she knew that she went today and loved it. So she came home and raved about all the different hands-on things she got to do there today, so.
Their new robotics, that Ramtech lab is out of this world. We got a big grant for that, so it's really up to date. Everything's should go well.
When's the grand opening of that?
The ribbon cutting is December the 1st, I think.
Okay, other items, the first reading of our board policies, and I won't read all the letters there. Also, the Warren County Career Center, we are coming up on the the cycle where the Little Miami Board of Education will be sending a second delegate to the Warren County Career Center Board. Ms. Gray serves on it currently, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong if I speak out of turn here, Mr. Raines, but I believe, after speaking to everybody, you are the individual that will be setting forth this coming month.
I appreciate it, thank you.
And,
You're welcome.
We need to vote on that?
we'll have to do it in December, but I wanted to make sure we took care of that
Yeah.
tonight.
All right, good. Okay.
Okay, our next board meeting is December 13th at 7 PM, unless you're going to be in the work sessions. We also have a listening session on December 3rd at Winans at 10 AM. And also, the board work sessions on December the 5th, December 14th, both at 6:30. One's at the Little Miami High School, one's at the Little Miami Intermediate School.
Hey Randy, on the listening sessions, I just wanted to share with everybody, we typically try to hit all three communities. We did one at Kroger, we're doing one at Winans, and we're doing one at
To be determined
To be
over in
determined.
Harlan.
I just wanted to let the rest of the board know that I had a conversation with the chief, the fire chief in Salem Township, and he agreed to allow us, if we wanted to hold a future listening session at the Salem Township Fire Station. So I talked with Melinda, and there's some paperwork that we have to fill out for the fire department if we want to use that facility, and he's
I
gonna get
think
that
we
to Melinda.
determined January 12th was the date.
So in the future, if we want to have one in the Salem, Morrow area, the fire chief is open to letting us use their conference room.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Okay, master planning, community meeting, and last but not least is a conversation concerning the Hopkins Commons project.
I can give you the board, just to give everybody a general update.
You would, give us
Terry and I met with Mr. Warwick, the township administrator, to discuss the concept of an enterprise zone that would cover the area of the Hopkins Commons development. When we went down to that meeting, we were under the impression that there was a request from the developer for a pool of tax dollars which would be forgiven as a part of his financing of that project. The initial proposal that we saw, if I recall correctly, it had the township receiving $102,000, and then it had us, I think we were somewhere around 100 and.
We're 102 also originally.
Yeah, it was 50-50 at the end.
102, 102.
Yeah.
We thought, when Terry and I met with Ray, we thought that was what they were designating as the pool of tax dollars as far as us getting a partial foregoing our full collection, which would be $280,000.
Just about, just slightly under.
For the 102 for 10 years. So we countered with what we thought the tax rate in the pool, we figured the pool was 204. So we countered with, I think our tax rate was 68% or something like that. So it
Yeah,
came- it came
69.
out that we proposed 139. The township was unwilling to take less, so they kept their 102. And they collect, ordinarily, their tax rate would have been about $43,000, $53,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So apparently, the pool is bigger than we thought it was, as far as what the developer was going to defray on his tax piece. So I did receive communication from Mr. Warwick the other day that the trustees had approved in principle the enterprise zone concept, with them continuing to collect $102,000 for that 10 years of the enterprise zone. So Terry and I would just kind of like some general direction from the board. Are you interested in us going back to counter? Are you interested in us just, what are your thoughts?
Do you think it'll do any good to go back and count?
I was gonna say, I have a recommendation, Bobby.
What?
I think we do need to go back to county.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Me, no deal's final until it's signed, it's a done deal. Worst thing they can do is say no.
What's your suggestion on account?
I think, right now, we're at 139, we're roughly at 50% abatement, from our full millage, if there was no enterprise zone whatsoever.
Right.
I think anywhere, to be honest, between that 50 and the 100% is the highest we can possibly go. Like Greg was saying, the pool, we thought the pool was, about this big, but apparently if the township can dip back into developers funds, I don't know why the district can't either to give, essentially more of what.
They're collecting
what they
over
were
twice of what they were
Sounds
gonna
like that should
collect,
be all
right
right.
around.
Exactly.
The same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Percentage-wise.
I would be much happier with around 3/4 or so, but we're at 50% right now.
Worst
Like
case
split the
scenario, all
difference.
they're gonna do is say, no, he's already breaking ground, so things are already moving forward.
Exactly, he's got earth movers out there, he's moving ahead.
Mhm.
So if they don't, if they say no, we still would get half?
No, we haven't made any
We haven't made any
commitment.
Yeah, we haven't made any.
The board hasn't made any commitment.
Right.
Right now, technically, there is no enterprise zone.
Does it seem unrealistic that if they're getting twice what they're supposed
So
to?
So
if
there's
we
no
said
abatement.
Yeah,
no,
that's
they
part of
wouldn't
ours.
have an enterprise
They're
zone, so they
Well,
couldn't get that much, is that right?
Correct, there's no enterprise zone right now, so there's no abatement, he's moving dirt.
So your suggestion then is what number again?
I'd like to try to, between where we have 50% cut, I'd like to try to split the difference and get 75% out of it.
So you're looking at what,
Get another,
about 200?
yeah, yeah,
140.
we're going about 78 grand.
You're
I'm
going
not-
about 78, so you got one,
Yeah.
so you got
Yeah,
70.
somewhere around there, yeah.
I'm not a math
210, 215.
major, Terry, but, the original proposal was a 50-50 split between us and the township.
Yeah,
You and Greg went down to the township and said, we'd like 68%, and the township said, that's fine, we still want our 50%.
yeah, they want their 50%, and really what it is 50% of the total, 50% was going to the developer, and then the other 50 was divided out between the school ship.
Split,
school
yeah, that's right.
district and the
That's right.
township.
And we were getting half, we were splitting that.
Exactly, and we made it in proportion to what the millage is compared to the overall millage. The millage in the district's about 68.75% of the total millage.
Okay.
So we moved it to that direction, but they went right back into the pot right away for the developer, and I thought, well, if they can't, so can we.
And we can stipulate on that, that we want that to be a set pool of dollars, not based on the.
Absolutely, we don't want to base it on the valuation. of
On the
property.
valuation, because
10 years.
he might say that
Yeah.
that project will be worth $18 million, but it might only appraise at 15.
Right. But we can
Exactly.
only stipulate the first 10 years though.
Right,
Yeah, well, after the enterprise is over, the enterprise zone will be over after 10 years, we get full millage rate.
full millage after 10.
Right.
Whatever it might be.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and according to discussions with the county auditor, he said he finds these many times that the valuations are a little inflated when they come in.
It is like,
I think you need to
Yeah,
find
I
out.
think it's a little high.
so
I
we're
think we
going to
should go
counter
for what we
that.
can get.
Absolutely.
Terry, do you think it's unrealistic to ask for the same thing the township has? The township received twice the amount they were supposed to, so why wouldn't we start at twice the amount we were supposed to?
We can't believe we never get it, because that's more than what the overall,
Not our problem, the
yeah, I mean,
township.
they'd have to pay us
took this
actually
chunk.
more than what the taxes would
And we
be.
can tell them we have this BAC that wants to save all this money, and we need that money.
Yeah.
Wait, okay.
If there were to be no enterprise zone, and if there were to be no TIS,
Right.
tax incremental finance, which the township has already projected completely.
Yeah.
So that's not gonna happen.
Right.
The total tax revenue from this project, when completed, is in the range of $400,000 a year.
Right.
About 4 and 4.
Okay?
408, so it's like
district,
408
it's
some
a-
change.
Yeah,
maybe.
it's like 409, it's like 409.
Yep,
Okay.
Round numbers, right.
408.
yep.
Okay, so the enterprise zone would give the developer a 50% reduction in his taxes for a 10-year period of time. It's an incentive
Right.
to him to go ahead with the project and not do something like open it up to open housing, okay? The project itself is for senior housing, which imparts little or no impact to Little Miami schools,
Exactly.
okay? Senior residents, grandparents, our age, our vintage. Okay.
Depends on how they vote.
Right, and so that's the discussion, deliberation, so the three parties that have to be satisfied. Okay, the developer has to be satisfied so that he goes ahead with his original intention of establishing senior living and senior residence. The township has to be satisfied because they are the ones who literally have to provide service. And it is going to be an impact on the township for EMS, if nothing else. Okay? And the school district is a partner in the whole thing. So we have to come up with something that was reasonable. And I don't know what that is, but
So we're talking about how do we split a pie that's $204,000 and some
I think
change?
that's-
How do we split that pie between the school district and the township?
Mhm.
Except the 204 is now grown,
Yeah, exactly.
because it's bigger than what it was when you look at the
Do we know
original.
what that is?
sorry, the way it works is that the taxes would be abated for a 10-year period of time. But the developer will pay to the township and to the school district some of the money that is being abated. So that's the way it works.
Yeah, they're called pilots, payment in lieu of taxes.
Payment in lieu of taxes, right? I got you.
Right.
So Terry, the question here is, do you, well, I would go in with your number of, what was it, 210?
Yeah, I mean, I
And
think
see,
math figured out exactly.
see what is said. I'm curious, because everything I've seen from this project has changed numerous times.
Yes.
Every time I see a financial thing on it, it's different than the last. And I don't understand how he does that with these banks. But every time we've received something from him, it's always been different. We need to find out what that dollar is, and I think the conversation I had with Greg and you, after our board meeting, the board had instructed you guys to just, to negotiate. So when you feel that you have exhausted, your ability, then,
We'll bring you a number.
we'll move on, yeah.
Okay.
We've got
Okay.
confidence that you guys
Do
can
you
handle
have
it.
any group that you don't know what
This
it
way.
is?
Well, it's already
Okay.
bigger. It was 204, but now if you take their 102 and our 139, we're bigger than 204.
Yes,
right
that's
now.
so. With the township's proposal, that pot grew by about 40,000, by about 40,000 bucks.
Right.
Okay.
Right, per year, about 40,000 bucks a year.
Yeah.
You're shaking your head again.
And is Mr. Rippies okay with, I mean, did the township agree to that
Well,
structure?
we've been talking with the township
Yeah.
strictly right now at this point.
And that's who we should be talking to.
Yeah.
That's right, that's who we should be talking to, is the
Yeah.
township. Okay, so you guys are gonna take care of that, report back to us, let us know what we can do. Any community comments on non-agenda items, Ms. Coates?
No,
Thank
thank you.
And, all right, at this moment, I need a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
move.
Commissioner Evans?
Second.
Janae?
Who's first?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Janae?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Mr. Cremines?
Yes.
Mr. Needham?